I want to paint a picture for you. Imagine you're a defendant in a courtroom and the judge is about to rule your verdict. The evidence against you is that you once said, "I'm always worried about what other people think of me and what they think of what I say and do." The gavel bangs and the judge declares you guilty of every mistake you've ever made, knowingly and unknowingly in your life. Your sentence? Life behind bars. And just like that, you've been judged by your own beliefs, and now you live in prison. Now, this seems unreasonable. I mean, what judge would possibly sentence you to life behind bars because of that? You. You become the judge of your life, constantly condemning yourself for things you've done or other people have done, for mistakes you've made, or how other people have treated you. So while you're physically free, you're mentally, emotionally, and spiritually chained. If you haven't guessed already, today we're going to be talking about judgment. Judgment is often associated with another word, fault finding or negative criticism. What does that look like? Fault finding looks like this. Oh, that outfit is ugly. This person's too this or too that. Their hair is nasty. That dress doesn't even fit them. Now notice how a lot of the stuff that we criticize is directed externally towards other people. Now we can stay on the surface all day long, but that won't change your life. So we gotta go deeper. And that means we're gonna have to look in the mirror. While our judgment and criticism may seem as though it's directed outward, it's really a reflection of what's happening inward. When we say this person is this or this person is that, we're using it as a defense mechanism because that's how we see and talk to ourselves. Let me give you a real life story. So I was in class with this girl, and let me tell you, she was the most annoying person I have ever shared a room with. I mean, this girl needed to be right about everything, and couldn't nobody tell her anything different. I mean, she's arguing with the teacher because the teacher is giving out instructions, but she wants to do it her way. She always needed to get the last word in. You know the type. So, me, I'm rolling my eyes, sucking my teeth, huffing and puffing, in my mind going, why can't you just listen? Why do you always have to prove a point? Why can't you just be wrong? Then I paused, and I noticed the questions that I was asking, and I saw the words that I was highlighting. And I was reminded in that moment that if I'm seeing something in someone, it's because I see it in myself. So here's this person trying to be right all the time, trying to prove a point, and I go, oh, that's me. While I wasn't going back and forth with the teacher, I was going back and forth with myself. I was trying to prove a point to people that were influencing me when I was growing up. Whether that was my mom when I brought home a 98 instead of a 100, whether it was a religious leader in the church telling me to do a certain amount of things in order to be accepted into heaven and feel God's love. Whether it was my grandma, my uncle, my sisters that told me I was too annoying, I was too this or too that. I used perfection as a mask to cover up the mess underneath. I would give the most elaborate answer to the most straightforward question to sound deep so people wouldn't see what I was trying to hide. Now, sometimes I still do, but it's more for fun than it is for a cover up. Sometimes. And I would spend hours studying and learning so that if I was ever asked a question, I made sure I had the correct answer. I offer that we all look into the mirror and notice how we judge others/ourselves based on our beliefs. If you're seeing it in someone else, it's because you see it in you. Or else, you wouldn't see it. And when you do see it, it is easy to feel triggered and use judgment to smite it down. But who is the one that really receives the punishment? Jesus says in Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 and 2, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Don't pick on people, jump on their failures, criticize their faults, unless, of course, you want the same treatment. That critical spirit has a way of boomeranging. Here, Jesus is talking about the mirror-like quality of life. Don't look at the scripture. Look at the principle. I believe Justin Timberlake said, "What goes around, goes around, goes around, comes all the way back around." Yeah. Religion was teaching condemnation and crucifixion as a result of sin. Mad judgment. Jesus was teaching forgiveness despite sin. It wouldn't be fair for me to move on without giving you a working definition of sin, because I'm sure you've heard it plenty of times, but never really knew what it meant. Sin is going against yourself. More specifically, going against what God has put in you and who He's called you to be. So greed, lust, gluttony is not sin. They are the effects of sin. Sin produces sins. So if you don't know your purpose, don't know who you are, and you misplace your value and identity, that is sin. Let me show you how opposite religion and the kingdom really are. In John chapter 8, verses 3 to 11, there's a story of an adulterous woman.
Early the next morning, he went back to the temple. All the people gathered round him, and he sat down and began to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman who had been caught committing adultery, and they made her stand before them all.
Teacher! This woman was caught in the very act of committing adultery. In our law, Moses commanded that such a woman must be stoned to death. Now, what do you say?
They said this to trap Jesus, so that they could accuse him. But he bent over and wrote on the ground with his finger. As they stood there asking him questions, he straightened up.
Whichever one of you has committed no sin may throw the first stone at her.
Then he bent over again and wrote on the ground. When they heard this, they all left, one by one, the older ones first. Jesus was left alone with the woman still standing there. He straightened up.
Where are they? Is there no one left to condemn you?
No one, sir.
Well then, I do not condemn you either.
This story sticks out to me because growing up, I felt condemned and judged by church, fueled by a religion and a belief in Jesus. So I'm looking at the two, and the math ain't mathing. So I grew up thinking God was an angry God, and He was going to smite me down the second I sinned or did something wrong, which is where that mask of perfectionism came into play. Yet here's Jesus on God's behalf, and He doesn't exhibit or preach any of that. Again, in Matthew 7, do not judge, or you will be judged. For the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And the same measure you use onto others will be measured unto you. So that judgment is not from God, per se. That judgment that you would receive is from you. This is where you get to increase your awareness and notice. If ill judgment and negative criticism is the tip of the iceberg, what do you think is beneath the surface? The main body is made up of insecurity and limiting beliefs of unworthiness. Beliefs that say, I don't deserve the life of my dreams. I'm not worthy of love. I'm not enough. Insecurity, masked as ill judgment, unworthiness, masked as destructive criticism. If you're always seeing the wrong in something, you're looking for evidence to support a belief you have about yourself. Let me say that again. If you're always seeing the wrong in something, you're looking for evidence to support a belief you have about yourself. So if the belief is that you're not worthy or you're not enough, insecurity, unworthiness, you will judge, find faults in others or yourself to reinforce that belief. So if judgment is the fruit, what's at the root? I want to leave some questions for you. What is it in you that you are judging yourself for? What haven't you forgiven yourself for? What do you still hold shame toward? What is it in you that you feel if anybody else were to see, they would reject you for it? So here's an opportunity to change your beliefs, which is what Jesus was inviting us to do when he said, repent, change the way you think. He said things like, you are the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. You are children of God. If you really believe that, you will know that you are enough because you are deeply and immensely loved by your Creator, that you matter, that you were made and designed for a purpose, that since you're joint heirs with Christ, you have access to heaven, and you deserve to live the life of your dreams. So practically, what does that look like? It's going to require courage. The courage to be imperfect. The courage to mess up and not bash yourself for it. Which leads me to number 2, compassion. Compassion to yourself, being kind to others as well. And then connection as a result of authenticity. And ultimately the key that frees you from the cage and the prison of judgment is forgiveness. Forgiving yourself for things that you should or should not have done. Forgiving others for things that they should or should not have done. So practically, say, I forgive myself. I forgive, fill in the person's name. Now at first, you won't feel a thing. You're probably gonna not do it because you didn't feel anything. But I offer that you keep on saying it. Keep on saying it and you will feel the weight release off your shoulders. You will feel that anger, the resentment, the shame turn to joy. I promise you, if you truly and earnestly forgive yourself, you will feel relieved. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that I'm right, that anything that I'm saying is right, that the Bible is right, that you're wrong. I'm not saying none of that. Because right and wrong still operates from a place of judgment. Guilty, unguilty. Just, unjust. Right, wrong. And that's just going to keep you in the same loop. What I'm offering you is a different perspective based upon truth. For example, if you were to use fault finding for your benefit, it may look something like this. For me, I was able to use fault finding in my business and see where there was an opportunity for me to improve. I noticed that there was a gap in communication between my clients and I, so I used fault finding to fill in that gap. Not right or wrong, just different. But the real question is, are you willing to free yourself from your cage? You hold the key, open the lock, open the door, and walk out. Because the beginning of your life starts now. If ill judgment and negative criticism, okay, cool. And feelings